My mouth immediately filled with warm blood before my body even collided with the floor. The sharp crack of his fist still reverberated through my skull as my shoulder bone violently dislocated. I vividly recall the coarse carpet fibers pressing against my face, now soaked crimson, and the metallic taste of iron on my tongue. My brother-in-law, Marcus, loomed over me, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with palpable rage. My sister, Skylar, did not scream. She did not even flinch in shock. She merely folded her arms across her chest and delivered her cold verdict. "You are utterly heartless. You should have simply endorsed the mortgage document." That was her response to my critically injured body. Not sympathy, not fear, just calculated financial intent. I desperately dragged my broken body to my parents' door in Philadelphia, one arm completely useless, blood heavily streaking my shirt, pleading for help. My father, Arthur, instantly froze in shock. My mother, Alara, began to quietly sob, and then merciful darkness claimed me. When I regained consciousness, the police officers were already inside the residence. What they discovered, even they were clearly unprepared for. My sister, Skylar, had once been my absolute first protector. When we were children, she would fiercely chase away any bullies, meticulously bandage my scraped knees, and whisper solemn promises that she would always be there for me. I completely believed her promises. When she married him, Marcus, I convinced myself he would protect her just as she had always protected me. He smiled smoothly, shook my hand firmly, and stated, "Family loyalty means absolutely everything to me." I trusted him entirely. I trusted her completely. That is precisely what makes deep betrayal such a powerful poison. It never originates from enemies. It originates from the very people you would willingly die for. It began subtly. Marcus would often make condescending jokes about money during our family dinners, pointing out how fortunate I was with my stable professional career, my savings, and my personal discipline. My sister, Skylar, would laugh just a little too enthusiastically. Then the request started. First, a small monetary loan, then something substantially larger, then the absolute request, acting as guarantor for their home mortgage. Their tone became significantly more aggressive when I refused their demands. "You are our blood," my sister, Skylar, snapped sharply. "If you genuinely care about me, you will certainly do this." But genuine affection and debt obligations are fundamentally incompatible. I firmly refused their demand. The warm smiles vanished completely, and the underlying tension thickened dangerously. Then came the vicious assault, my brutal punishment for maintaining my ground. The intense pain afforded me absolute clarity. Lying on that hospital bed, my arm tightly strapped and my jaw wired partially shut, I grasped two essential truths. First, they genuinely believed I was weak. Second, they had no idea how profoundly dangerous I could become when I chose to remain perfectly silent. I did not loudly scream for immediate justice. I did not wildly curse them to every person who would listen. Instead, I simply listened. I meticulously studied them while my severe physical wounds healed. I systematically collected damaging information, his business records, her personal credit history, the calculated lies they were feeding my vulnerable parents. Every component of their fragile empire was visibly built upon shaky loans, deliberate fraud, and utter desperation. I did not seek retaliation fueled by blind rage. I desired it to be constructed with absolute, cold precision. Step 1. Absolute silence. I completely stopped arguing with them, stopped resisting their calls. I let them fully believe I was entirely broken and defeated. People inevitably become careless and overconfident when they assume you have surrendered. Step 2. Quiet infiltration. I tracked his shady, illicit business activities, hidden kickbacks, falsified client invoices, a long, convoluted trail of debts he had buried beneath forged documents. I gathered this evidence like priceless jewels, storing them securely where only I could ever access them. Step 3. The final trap. I went to my parents, calm, still visually wounded, but entirely resolute. I patiently presented them with every piece of paper, every single proof of how my sister and her husband were ruthlessly bleeding their finances dry. The profound shock that registered in my father, Arthur's eyes stung me more deeply than any of my physical injuries. But I did not stop my plan there. I handed the entire compiled collection of files to the bank, the tax authorities, and the police department. Not just one single strike, but a sudden, overwhelming storm delivered from every direction simultaneously. I ensured every single domino was perfectly lined up. All I had to do next was calmly watch them inevitably fall. The day their entire structure came completely crashing down, I made sure I was there to witness it. I walked into their house uninvited. My medical sling was long gone by then. My body was completely healed, but my mere presence still deeply unsettled them. Marcus sat hunched over the kitchen table, financial bills scattered like shrapnel. My sister, Skylar's, phone incessantly buzzed. Creditors, lawyers, investigators. He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot and haunted. You orchestrated this entire thing. I didn't bother to deny the truth. I simply stood there, perfectly calm, utterly steady. My sister, Skylar's, voice cracked with genuine confusion. Why, you are my own brother. I leaned closer so she could see every faint scar on my face, every painful reminder of that horrific night. You severed that sacred bond the precise moment you left me bleeding on the carpet for a mere signature. Then the inevitable knock came. It was not gentle, not polite. The police officers immediately stormed in. Papers in hand, the charges were read aloud. Fraud, assault, embezzlement. The absolute horror on their faces was not rage. It was stark, terrifying realization. They were absolutely not untouchable. Their fragile empire was reduced to ashes. As the cold steel handcuffs clicked loudly shut on his wrists, my brother-in-law, Marcus, spat final, desperate curses. My sister, Skylar, just stared at me, hollow-eyed, like she finally understood the completely different person I had been forced to become. I didn't smile as they forcefully dragged him out. I didn't gloat when she desperately begged the stern officers for any measure of mercy. Vengeance is not fundamentally about laughter or superiority. It is fundamentally about balance. That night, I sat alone in silence, the faint lines of bandages still barely visible on my skin, watching the large house across the street, their house, go permanently dark. People later inquired if I regretted my actions, if I felt any guilt for completely destroying my own sister's life. But guilt belongs solely to those who strike the first, unprovoked blow. I only finished what they started that night, and in the profound quiet of my mind, one essential truth pulsed steady as my own renewed heartbeat. They wrongly believed that blood made me eternally weak. But ultimately, blood is precisely what made me absolutely ruthless.